Hi, I'm Karen from Aging Fearlessly. I recently experienced something in life that many of us, we don't look forward to it. My father passed, and we've been going through settling up his wills with a solicitor. And today I have with me Belinda Wightley, who has been a lawyer for 20 years and is going to give us some insight into wills. Hello, Belinda.
Hello, Karen.
It's so good of you to come along today because this is such an important topic.
It is, it really is. And it's one of those things that's not always at the forefront of your mind to do something about it, straight away.
Yeah, it is. I think for many families it's a difficult concept to discuss. But what is a will and why should we have one?
A will is your formal wishes for how you would like your estate administered. You select the people to take control of your assets and to make sure that they're administered in accordance with your wishes, and they're called executors. If you have children under 18, you can also nominate in your will who you would like to have guardianship of your children. And you also, in your will, what's called dispose of your assets. So all of your worldly goods are distributed how you would like them to be.
I haven't thought about children and what happens to the children.
Well, you can nominate in your will who you would like to be the guardian of your minor children. The state ultimately decides, then that's to account for situations where you may have done a will a long time ago and the person you nominate is no longer around or perhaps no longer suitable to care for children. But that's definitely what you put in if you've got little children.
Wow. It's mind-blowing what you have to put into a will. So every time I go to my financial planner once or twice a year, he asks me about my will and when I last updated it, and he wants to have a copy on file. So how often should you update your will?
Well, you should. It's not necessarily a time consideration, more like a circumstance consideration. So if you've got particular assets that change, you might sell a property, you might gain shares in things, then you should make sure that your will reflects at all times what your portfolio is. Also, if you get divorced or remarry, it's important to redo your will then because it won't be valid.
Now, if the worst happened and I walked down the road tomorrow and I got hit by a bus and I don't have a will, heaven forbid, what are my family and friends likely to be faced with?
A lot of red tape, I'm afraid. They will have to try and work out who your beneficiaries are. It's in fact done on a formula. The state has a formula as to who gets what.
Really?
And
a formula?
There's a formula, yes. In order of importance of people who, relatives who might, still be alive or perhaps not. So it's really nothing to do with what you want. It's how the state decides through legislation what happens to intestate wills, intestate people.
Oh my goodness. I mean, I have heard about it before and people just say you can do a will or make a will, you should make a will. So what if they don't have a will?
Well, I've got some horror stories. If you'd like some horror stories.
I'd love some horror stories.
There's one horror story where a elderly man who had lots of nephews and nieces, and most of them lived overseas or in a different state, but there was one nephew who lived close by, and he was this gentleman's carer, and he was there every day caring for this man. And he was, and the man kept telling him that he wanted him to get everything because he was, like a son to him, yes. Unfortunately, the man didn't have a will, and in accordance with the legislation, it was distributed equally amongst all of the nieces and nephews, even the ones that he hadn't seen for 30 or 40 years.
Well, they'd be rubbing their hands together, wouldn't they?
Wouldn't they? Yes.
And I know you have another horror story to tell me.
I do have another horror story. I have a story of a young woman who died in a work accident, and the workers' compensation ran to a number of hundreds of thousands of dollars. And she didn't have a will, and so according to the legislation, her assets were distributed equally to her parents. You think that's fine? What's wrong with that?
Yep. But
Unfortunately, her father had deserted her mother 3 weeks before she was born.
oh my goodness.
She'd never met him. He got half.
That's a real horror story.
That is a real horror story.
I asked you the what. Why don't people have wills?
Yes, it's interesting, isn't it? I believe that it's difficult for people to think about their death. I mean, how often do we think, do we want to be cremated or buried? Or it's not something that is pleasant to think about. And also, people, when they think about their death, they always picture themselves as incredibly elderly, and that might be 20, 30 years away. And so it's not bubbling to the surface of your priorities. And so you think, oh, yeah, I've got to do that. And then put it off and put it off. I mean, I have clients who make appointments, and then we get all the information, but getting them to then bring in the missing bits to actually finally put the will together could be months in between. And I know it's something else has become more important. So I always say it's extremely important to make a will at least 2 weeks before you die.
Well,
if only you knew when you were going to die.
So can I borrow that crystal ball that you have?
Exactly.
Because
exactly.
We don't know that. None of us know that. That's just part of life that we don't know. And I have stories of my own where a close friend of mine had a terminal illness, and she hadn't signed the document. Now, it all did work out in the end, but she'd left her husband three weeks before she passed away and taken the children, and her solicitor had gone on holidays. And so she could have had it signed by someone else, but, taken it and dealt with it else. But anyway, it did work out in the end. It worked out fine. But, issues like that, I mean, it was a fait accompli that she was going to pass away. So it was really, really urgent. And, I know with my father, his will has been quite complicated in settling it, because part of the estate that he has is in another state in New South. So it's taken a lot longer. And I'm learning because of these things that are happening. But as part of aging fearlessly, what are your top tips when it comes to wills?
Well, I think as you get older and you're going to age fearlessly, for me, taking control. Have some control and eliminate the fear. Get what needs to be done, and then you can sit back and tick that box. You've ensured that your wishes will be carried out.
That's perfect advice. Belinda, after this interview, I will publish your details on my website next to the interview. So if people want to contact you so that you can give them great advice and do a will for them, they'll be able to find you.
That would be wonderful. I'd like that.
So thanks so much for sharing that. I know wills are not a topic we want to talk about. We always joke in our family about when my mother dies that I'm going to put a vacuum cleaner in with her because she'll want to clean a coffin and whatever. But we have a manner in our family of making it a joke. But it is really a very serious matter.
It is.
And sharing this with my audience is really vital help and knowledge for them. So thank you.
Thank you. As I always say, don't leave your gifts to your beneficiaries tied up in red tape.
Oh, that red tape. This is Belinda Wightley on Aging Fearlessly, and all this information is so important. So if you haven't got a will, contact Belinda and get one done. Just do it.